Hello and welcome to Coach Unblocked, part of the Unblocked Podcast Network. I'm Coach Fred Riley with my special guest tonight, Coach Chris Musso from Oak Grove High School up in North Alabama. Our show tonight is brought to you by the publishing company of my book, Bo Don't Know Me, Back Porch Publishing right here in good old Fairhope, Alabama, and we appreciate them. Coach, thanks for being on.
Coach, thank you so much for having me. It's always good to talk with you.
You know, we go back a long way from back to talking option football way back in the day to you coaching my nephew at Locust Sport. And I think he coached a little bit for you maybe a little bit after that. And Ellis is in the insurance business now, I do believe. That's right. In that area. But you know, we faith, family, and football. I bring only guys that are that I know coach from a faith-based perspective and run their programs that way. And so tell us why coaching. Where did that start? The love for sport, the love for football specifically. How did all that start for you?
Well, you know, when I was growing up, we were kind of poor. And so every time the rent was due, we moved. And so I had the opportunity to go to several different high schools. And as I was moving around, I needed football, man. I needed it. And I got to local sport high school, and Coach Hollis Beecham was the coach there at the time.
I remember Hollis Beecham.
You know him?
I remember him. I can remember my daddy talking about what a good football coach Hollis Beecham was when my dad was alive, and going and watching his teams play and just telling me this guy does a really good job. And so it's a name that I've known since I was a young coach.
Well, he got me to come out and at Locust Fork, and then Coach Gary Pate come in. Coach Beecham had decided not to coach, and Coach Gary Pate come in, and I was able to play for him. And man, I just really needed it. I was, you know, like most of these young men, you know, I didn't have a father figure at home, and I needed somebody to guide me. And, you know, I needed that team way more than they ever needed me. And I enjoyed the lessons and being part of a team. And it was always just such a great experience for me. And being from Locust Fork, they have a great community, and it was just a good time. And I enjoyed it. And, you know, I was getting ready to go to college, and they asked me to coach like a youth basketball team. And so I did that. And man, I just fell in love with coaching, and just coaching kids and being around them. And you know, I felt like that's what the Lord was calling me to do. And so I followed his guide, and it's just been a great journey for me.
Well, now you of course from Locust Fork, or you ended up landing at Locust Fork where you finished up your high school. Where'd you go to college? What did you get your degree in? You know, all that stuff.
Okay. Well, I went to Sneed State right out of high school. I was going to try to play some basketball, and I wanted to go up there and play. And the coach there kind of wanted to redshirt me or whatever, and so I didn't do that, and I just went ahead and finished up. And then after that, I went to Jacksonville State, got my teaching degree in elementary education. Because, everybody was telling me, if you get an elementary degree and you're a male, you'll get a job. So I wanted a job. So I went into elementary education. And again, I had an elementary teacher that was really awesome. And she did a good by me as far as knowing how to handle me. Like I said, I had moved several schools, and so she had an impact. So that kind of helped me also go into elementary education. I went to Jacksonville, and I was getting ready to do my student teaching. So I kind of looked around and I said, well, who's got the best football team that I can learn from? And so it just so happened that Alexandria was there. And so I went and met with Coach Ginn, and he was gracious enough to let me come and learn a little bit from him. And so we got to do student teaching. They had Matt Campbell and won the state championship. So it was a good deal for me to get to be around him.
Sure.
And graduated from Jacksonville, and Locust Fork had offered me a job, and that was home. And so I took it as an assistant coach.
Gotcha. Now, did you get your certificate? Was it a K-8 certificate? What?
It was actually a K6. And
K-6.
so,
Oh,
yeah. And so that, that was hard for a while. I went to Locust Fork and taught middle school math and English. And then, it was okay when I was at Locust Fork because the school was K through 12. So
right.
when I was an assistant coach for several years for Paul Downs and another great coach that had a tremendous impact on my life. And was an assistant coach for him for several years. And then when I started to become a head coach, that was an issue. When I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to become a head coach, I didn't have a certificate to be a high school teacher. So I had to go back. And so I went back to school and got my master's in administration. And then
Yeah.
when I did that, that still didn't help me much. So then I went back and got the driver's ed. And then I've got
Right.
a PE certification. So all of those, I was able to open doors to where I can go and be a head coach.
Sure, and coaches who are, which is one reason I love doing this, is because it will, every guy, it rings a bell with somebody out there. Says, oh yeah, I remember having to do that. So did you do the summer driver's ed program?
Yes, sir. I sure did. That's right.
Okay. And did you go to where'd you go to do it? Tuscaloosa? Where'd you go to do that?
It was in Birmingham,
Birmingham.
Virginia.
Okay. And then so and then you got your PE certificate. Now, where'd you go to school to get that and your admin?
I did that with a praxis. And so
Okay.
my admin, I went back to Jacksonville and got it.
At Jacksonville. Okay.
And I was able to use the driver's ed as part of my master's curriculum. So
Gotcha.
I got to use that as electives, and so that helped me get all of those things.
So now, what year was that you went to Jack State and get your master's?
Let's see. I would say that would be somewhere around 2002, 2003, somewhere in there.
Okay, so that was a time where you had to go on campus and do a lot of on campus stuff, right? They were not like today where they just do it online
That's right.
and not have to be physically there. So
That's right. They were
how did you
starting
do that?
Yeah, they were starting that. So I was able to take some classes at Sneed, which was a
Okay,
lot closer, but I did
right.
have to drive to Jacksonville some to take some classes. And then I was able to take a few online. So that worked out.
Okay. You're right on the sort of front end of folks being able to do some online stuff.
That's right.
Eddie Tyler, who's the superintendent at Baldwin County Schools down here, 1994, 95, in that window, he was my offensive line coach at Robertsdale.
Okay.
And he had come to me and said, "Are you okay with me missing every Monday? I want to start my administrative certificate, and I've got to drive to Livingston every Monday to start taking my classes." I said, "Absolutely, go." And so every Monday that year, Eddie was gone to Livingston, Alabama, to start his admin certification. Never ever dreamed in 1994 he'd end up being a superintendent of Baldwin County Schools.
How about that?
So it's a pretty cool story how all that went down. And administrative certificate. Have you ever had any desire to be an administrator?
Um, you know, not yet. I mean, I'm an administrator at our school now as an athletic director, and
Right.
I do some things that with administrative stuff, but not yet. And I think that day may come,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as that fire's there to coach, man, I still feel young, and
Sure.
I still feel excited to go every day. So as long as that fire's burning, I'm gonna let it ride.
So now you've been head coach multiple places.
Mhm.
Let's talk about your journeys as a head coach and how you've gotten to now at Oak Grove.
Okay. Well, my first job was at John Carroll. They had offered me an opportunity. They had been down a little bit, and I guess they were looking for some youth, and so they gave me an opportunity to go in and and be the head coach there, and it was super exciting. And that's when I came to meet with you. And
Right.
so I knew that you had did some great things that I wanted to copy and mimic, and I still use some of the things you and I talked about when we were down there. And so I had so my first job was there at John Carroll. It was a great time. I loved the school. I still have great memories from there, and I was there for 5 years. I got to coach some great kids, man, that I still keep in touch with today. And you know how that is. It's just
Sure.
it's a great experience, and I had a really good time. And Locust Fork had called me my first year. You know, when you're an assistant coach and you're at your home school, you know, sometimes it's hard to be the head coach there, you know, just without any experience. And at the time, I couldn't see that. You know, I was young and I
Mhm.
was from Locust Fork and I wanted to be the head coach there, but I really needed to leave. And the principal there had advised me to go out, and I really didn't want to, but I did. And after my first year at Carroll, I believe it was my first year, maybe my second, they offered me the job at Locust Fork, and I told them that I wasn't going to do it. I was still satisfied at Carroll, and so after the fifth year, they offered it to me again, and so I took the job, and that's when Ellis got to work for me. I knew Ellis lived in the community,
Right.
and when I got to Locust Fork, I was unable to hire any coaches, bring any coaches,
Right.
and so when that happened, I had to reach out and start finding people that I knew that were interested and that might could help us out. And so Ellis come in and did a phenomenal job. Ellis could be a football coach. There's no doubt in my
Right.
mind, he's a phenomenal guy. And to be honest with you, I've called him at every stop, and I saw him this, I guess, last week. And I asked him, I said, "Where are you at?" And I think he's up in North Alabama, up in
Right.
he's a little farther north than he could get to Oak Grove. But
Yeah,
uh,
and just so our viewers and listeners will know, because we actually talked about this before the show. Ellis is my nephew,
mhm,
and that who you coached and had on your staff for a little bit, and and was raised by my father basically. And
mhm,
as my younger brother had gone through some troubling times in that stretch, and so my dad ended up raising Ellis, and
yeah,
some great pictures of him and Ellis fishing and doing things together and spending time together that we still have in the family that are really cool. And I know that he loved that young man like a son.
that's right. He
And
was at practice, and he was your dad. Let me say this: your dad was awesome. He was an awesome granddad, but he's also a very proud dad. And he would talk about how proud he was of you. And you know, he would say, you know, you can go down and meet with him. And I remember that. And so, but he was always great to Ellis. He loved him, and he would always want to meet. You think he's got it? I would say, yeah, I think
Mhm.
he can do some stuff. And so, but when I went back to Locust Fork, it was a no brainer to me to bring him on. I knew he was a coaching kid from a coaching family, and he did good. But your dad was very proud of you, Coach, and
Yeah.
he told me that. And so I know that he told me that on several occasions.
Well, he was a good one, and and the thing that you've done, with coming from a fatherless home and impacting all the lives you've done. I mean, every family like us that came from poor upbringing, little or nothing, there's always somebody in that family that you can go back to and
Mhm.
say they broke the generational curses.
That's exactly right.
They're the ones that said, that it stops here.
Mhm. That's
And,
right.
and for our family, it was my dad. I mean,
Mhm.
because everybody prior to him was just, and he really, I mean, I've talked to psychologists over the years and told his story, and they will say he's one in a million. He's a miracle.
Mhm.
You're a miracle
Mhm.
because from where you are because of what he did. It's literally a miracle,
Mhm.
and well, that's certainly a God thing for sure. And
Absolutely.
and he was that transitional one that changed generational curses to blessings, and then he sort of put the mantle on me to make sure that I carried it to the next level, and it has always been, one of my passions in leading my family, and that's what you've done. I mean,
Mhm.
you broke it. I mean, you were that first person, and I know you have high expectations of Eli, and for that you've got to take this family to the next level,
That's right.
and and that's just and where they'll one day, long after you're gone, talk about Paul Chris
That's
and
right.
uh, and,
That's
and
right.
what he did and where he came from, and which I think is why I know over the years I've been drawn to and you've been drawn to tough jobs.
That's right. That's right.
Tough jobs with that you know that you can be impactful, and especially coaching local sport, Oak Grove, blue collar, working class, tough kids, tough families. I mean, we're Bill Smith's the same way, who I had on a few weeks ago. I mean, and sometimes we end up taking crappy jobs because our hearts are in the right place if we ain't careful.
That's right.
And get bit on the rear end, and our records ain't as our head coaching records ain't as good as they certainly don't reflect the time, effort, energy, and the lives impacted.
That's right.
You have to be really careful about that, and that's I know that's what you've done, and creating working to create a legacy.
Right. Well, and that's a lot of reward there. Just what you and I are talking about, just with the generational curses that we've broken or that our parents may have broken. But I think one of the greatest fulfillments that I ever have as a coach is when, and I know this may sound weird or whatever, but when I see one of my kids out, one of my players out, and I know what he came from, and I know his struggle, and I know he didn't have a dad, and I see him with his wife and kids, and I see that they love him. I can see that his wife loves him. I can see that his children love him. That's more than any win that you ever have. And I see that all the time. And that's, they don't even have to come say nothing to me. I mean, they just say, hey, coach, that's fine. But man, to me, I know, I've had those same kids that slept on my couch on Thursday night because they didn't have a good bed. And then I see those guys now, and they got a nice house, and they got several children, and man, that's gratifying. That's a lot of satisfaction in that.
No question, no question. The one of the best stories that I've told over the years is my quarterback at Inslee in 2000. His name's Travis Hendricks, and Travis Hendricks lived in the Brickyard projects, right there by the field, back when the Brickyard was there. And he didn't come to Labor Day football practice. He wasn't there. And I asked one of the guys, what apartment does he live in over there? And they gave me the apartment number. And so I went stomping right into the Brickyard projects on a Monday morning. I mean, winos and crackheads looking at me like I am an idiot. And I probably was. And I go all the way up in there. I find the door. I knock on the door, and this little boy answers the door. Had to be 8 years old or so. Looks at me and turns around and yells, "Mama, mama, the police is here." There's no way that any white man would be stupid enough to be knocking on that door that wasn't the police. And so Travis's mama came down the steps and said, "That's not no police, that's Coach Riley." And ma'am, Travis not at practice. Well, I sure he is. No, ma'am, I think you need to go upstairs and look in his bed. He's laying in it. She comes back. "You was right, Coach. I'll have him there in a minute." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm just going to wait on him right here because I'm not walking out of here by myself." And so we get him out of there. He gets to practice. They had a special election for House of Representatives last month in the Birmingham area in that district. Travis Hendricks won. He is now in the Alabama House of Representatives.
And how awesome is that, man?
I mean, it still sends chills all over me just thinking about it. And I sent him a message and said, "Hey, buddy, I'm so proud of you." And he sends right back, "Hey, Coach, I appreciate it." And that stuff like that is just, I mean, that's a movie making kind of stuff there. That's just good stuff.
That's right. And a lot of these jobs, like I said, I went to Locust Fork, and they were marred in a 12-year losing streak. And a lot of people had told me, you better not go back there, better not go to that school. But man, and the same thing, like here at Oak Grove, in between Locust Fork, I went to Haleyville for 3 years, and then the good Lord moved me here to Oak Grove, and I'm just so thankful. But this year we had a really good team, and our kids, to see them overcome. This school, Oak Grove, was in a 13-year losing streak. And so, it's a lot of gratification seeing those guys have some success. But again, those kids that, the kids that we have, they've only played just a few years. They're not part of that, but they've had to come through that and see that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And they want to make a difference. The same thing with the kids in Locust Fork. I'll never forget when we won our 5th game at Locust Fork. Man, those kids were so ecstatic. They just knew that was over, and we just had a great time. Like I said, I was at Locust Fork as the head coach for 6 years, and then went to Haleyville and was the head coach there for 3, and then now I've been here for 2. And like I said, at each stop you get to work with great kids, and I think that's the main draw is as a coach. When I was young, it was about the W's. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's about trying to win and make all the stuff and try to win rings. And then as you get older, man, you realize it's so much more than that. It's so much about the kids, and it's so much about the relationships and seeing those guys be successful. This year was one of the most gratifying years that I've ever coached. It was a fun year to watch those kids have success, and they're going to be successful in life. And so we're real excited about it. But again, like you said, just those impacts that you had on people's lives, even my life, taking me in as a young coach and saying, okay, this is what we do. I still remember you saying, split the defense, make one side guard one thing and the other side guard the other. And, at that time you were using some of Chip Kelly's stuff.
Right.
And
exactly right.
And so
stole it off YouTube.
I still have all those notes, man. I keep up with those, but this profession is the greatest profession in the world. I know people say that as cliche, but man, the relationships that I met with kids and other coaches like yourself, and it's just been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun, and I still, right now at Oak Grove, we got a bunch of young coaches, so they keep me young and keep me on my toes, I guess. So it's a lot of fun.
And God has us where we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. Absolutely. Regardless of whether we particularly are enamored by that or not at that moment in time. We're where we're supposed to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes you get placed in a tough job because you're the one who wants to take that team through it, or take that school through it. You're that hand-picked person to teach them how to deal with adversity. That's right. How to deal with struggles.
That's right.
How to get something out of this, and that this life lasting. And there's lessons every year. Whether it's deal with adversity, how to deal with winning. How to not get complacent. I mean, there are all kinds of life lessons that and every year is going to provide a set of them. That's and over the years, you just I think that's one reason you do get better as a head coach as you get older, because you just don't get many curveballs on the back end, because you've seen so many things and you've become experienced in dealing with all those things, and can maybe be a little wiser on the back end than we are on the front end. Now, you're a Christian. We know that. I know that from your and you before the sun comes up, you've already posted something on Twitter every day. When did you start doing that?
Okay, so I'm gonna give a little bit of my testimony here, if that's all right. I don't mean to bore you too much, but I'm gonna pour it out. So I got saved when I was in high school, but man, I played the game. You know what I'm saying? I was still living for Chris and doing what Chris wanted to do. And I played that for too long. And I got to a point, I was an offensive coordinator, was working for a great coach that I loved. My wife was pregnant with Eli, and everything was going good. I just bought a house. And I remember I was poor growing up. So I just bought this house. I had this house payment, and all this stuff was going on. And my wife actually got Bell's palsy, where she couldn't move part of her face. And my son was a big baby. He was 9 pounds, 10 ounces. And so my wife's not very big. And so, during that pregnancy, she got Bell's palsy. So She had just gotten that. We were pregnant, and the coach that I was working for had decided to resign. Okay, so he had decided that he was going to retire, go back to Mississippi. So he decided to do that. So inevitably, I lost my offensive coordinator job because they hired somebody else, so I didn't get that job. So you got that going against you a little bit. You got my wife was pregnant. I got this house to pay for. Got Bell's palsy. Well, in December of that year, my stepdad had asked me to go hunting with him. So I went hunting with him, and he was supposed to meet me at the truck at 11. I come back at 11. He wasn't there. So I go to find him, and I go around a corner, and his four-wheeler's just sitting in the green field running, and I don't see him. And so I run down there, and he'd had a heart attack. And so I have to flip him over and try to resuscitate. Well, He don't make it. He don't make it. So, I go back to to living, and I'm still going. My son's about to be born, all that stuff's going on. And then my wife gives birth to our son. And so she's in the hospital. It's in May. Had technically lost my job. I got a new house. I just lost my stepdad. And while she's in the hospital, her principal comes in and says, "We've got cutbacks. I'm going to have to give you a pink slip." Handed her a pink slip on the table. Well, at that time, man, I had to quit playing. I didn't have anything else. And I said, "God, I've got to quit playing games. I've got to turn my life over to you." And from that day forward, I hit my knees, and man, he just saved me. I mean, I know I was saved when I asked the first time, but it became real at that moment when I didn't have anything else. Sure. And so it became real at that point. And I promised God that every day, no matter what, from that day forward, I was going to live for him. I was going to build every football program that I ever was blessed to work with. I was going to build it on him. We built it on God, team, and me. And I was going to teach about him and tell everybody what he's done for me. And so every day, right when my eyes open, before I even got a sip of coffee, the first thing I do is open the Word to the Bible app. And then I do post it on Twitter, and I post it on Facebook, hoping that if anybody sees it, that they can understand, if he can save somebody that was as bad as I was and as terrible as I was, man, there's a lot of people out there that's a lot better than I am. And if someone can see that and they can lift somebody up, then I'm in. And so for the rest of my days, I'm always going to do my best. And if I'm asked to speak, I'm going to go and speak. And if I can do anything for the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I'm doing it. So I build everything on him.
Well, that's a amazing story, wonderful story. Have you been sued or threatened to be sued by the Freedom from Religion people yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm sure that could be happening, but not yet. So
they went after me about 7 years ago.
Oh goodness!
Told me I had to send a letter to the school system. I had to cease and desist. Have mercy. Dennis Hafer, the Southwest director of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, he said they've got him on speed dial. They just wear him out.
Yeah,
there's always something going on with those folks. But
that's right.
Well, now the off seasons here. All the things that go on in the off season, getting ready for next year. Folks that know coaching know that most of us take up the equipment one day and start the next season the next.
That's right. And
which is one of the hardest things to do is basically boot the seniors out of the building. Appreciate all you've done. Thanks a lot.
Yes, you know what I started doing was I meet with my seniors, toward the end of the season, and I say, "Now listen, when this thing ends, as long as we can ride it, we're going to ride it. Right. I don't want you to think I don't care about you. But if I don't move on, I will go into a depression." And I tell them, I say, I've got to get back going to work. So when this ends, and we do this, I know my coaches think I'm crazy, but when the season ends, we take up all the equipment that night. I mean, when they come back in Monday, we're ready to start again, and everything is out. And so we take up every equipment, everything. And so I don't know that a lot of people, I don't think if you've not ever been a head coach, I don't know that or maybe or coach at all. uh, You don't know that feeling of your own, and then all of a sudden it just stops.
Oh yeah.
And then you're like, you think about those seniors that you've been working with, and now they're gone, and it's hard, man. It's a hard deal,
Oh,
and
there's a little mild depression that
it
sits in
is
there, and
100%.
I know my first few years as a high school coach, having coached in college. In college, you always had the next thing. The season end, where you're on the road recruiting.
Mm,
And you're on the road recruiting, and that's over. Then you're in meetings to plan for spring practice. Then you do spring practice. Then you go into spring recruiting. Then you go into summer camps. And then in high school, it's just over.
yeah.
And for high school, the first 3 or 4 years that I was a high school coach, I got sick after the season. I had such an emotional letdown that I got the flu.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was pitiful until I learned how to manage that. And so I feel your pain there. I mean, it's just tough.
I mean, and that's I've told our coaches that we're just going to start the very next day. We started on Monday. I said, I'm going right back to it, man, because I just can't, it's hard to cope with. It's still hard to cope with. And so we went right back into the weight room and started working on this year and started teaching tackling again and just went right back to it.
Right.
And,
Right.
we tackled today. And so, I mean, I think that helps get you through it. And
Sure.
so starts helping you move forward.
Well, and when you've been in a program long enough too, your seniors understand that you've got to start developing leaders for the next year.
That's
And the
right.
team chemistry for the next year. And those other guys, they have a hard time leading if the last year senior are always around.
That's right.
I mean,
That's right.
it's just hard to do. It's hard to grab a hold of the reins right there, and so it's something that that has to be done, and it's difficult. And we bring the coaches in on Sunday and take up all the equipment while the players weren't there. When we tell them on Friday night, look, if you got any personal belongings in there, seniors, you better get them tonight.
That's right.
Because we're cleaning out these lockers Sunday.
That's right.
And we would so we clean out the lockers, do the equipment room, do all that stuff on Sunday, have a quick staff meeting to plan that next week, make sure everybody knows that we're starting testing tomorrow. For all season. Coach Pope, strength coach, have them in groups, have them ready to go. We're going tomorrow. And of course, he would know that. We'd already discussed. It's one thing about as a head coach, you have to be planning. It's like every game, you have to plan for what you're going to say. If you win, you got to plan what you're going to say if you lose. Even though you hate to lose, you have to have a plan for it, and you have to have a plan when the playoffs are on for what happens if you lose and it's over. You can't just go, oh my gosh, we lost. I mean, there's it. Only one team wins the last game of the year. And unless you didn't make the playoffs at all in 1 week 10, so
right.
One of those things it's going to hit you in the face.
That's right. And what I'll do is I'll have a plan. I won't tell the assistant coaches yet, but I'll have a plan if we win, and I'll have a plan if we lose. And then I just pull which one out and say, all right, this is what happened. So on the bus ride home this year, we were at Westminster and got beat. And on the bus ride home, I'm texting them all. This is what we're going to do when we get back, going over that plan. And but yeah. And now, like our seniors know, we're working for them right now. So tomorrow we'll be at a recruiting fair trying to get those guys places to play if they want to play. And that's another thing that I picked up early. But, these kids, they bust their tail for you or for all these years. You've got to give your due diligence. I tell our coaches all the time this. It is my job to decide if our players can play at Oak Grove. But it's those college coaches' job to decide if they can play there. I'm never going to lie to a college coach. I'm going to tell them exactly what they're getting, but I'm also going to be a support for my guys because they work so hard for me. And so that's what we're at right now is tomorrow, the offensive coordinator, myself, and are going to a recruiting fair today. They're all turning in highlight films, trying to get all that stuff squared away, and trying to get all of our seniors signed and get our juniors looked at. And so it's a big deal to have that time before, and then you're doing your postseason analysis of things that you like, things you got to do better, things that you want to throw away, that kind of stuff. So that keeps you busy, keeps you focused a little bit more. So helps with some of those bad.
No, well, no doubt, and it's not very difficult to get one signed in the SEC.
Right.
Get one signed at West Georgia.
Right.
Get one signed at Harding in Arkansas. I mean, that's when guys are working. That's when
right.
The coaches are working in the recruiting world. Is when they have these guys that sign D2 or NCAA Division III or NAIA. I mean, that's when that guys are putting that kind of time in to make that happen, because they find those 6'5", 330 pounders. They don't have any problem telling them where they are.
That's right. That's right.
No doubt.
Ole Miss offered one of mine from Carroll, or I think it was Mississippi State. Come out, watched him in one drill, 4 minutes, walked back by him and said he's got an offer from Mississippi State.
Right.
Said, yeah, it's not hard to find, is it, Coach?
Oh yeah, no. Alphonse Taylor played at Alabama, played for us, and won 3 SEC championships and a national championship. And Coach Saban and Jeremy Pruitt came down to it hurt, obviously had seen him on film and wanted to take a look at him in person. And we were in that off-season window. It was a January recruiting window, and we're down there getting ready to do our stretching and bounding and hurdle work and all that stuff. It's all down on the field. And there's Shank down there. He's 6'6", probably 385 pounds at that time. And me and Coach Saban and Pruitt walked down the practice field. We got out there and I said, "Hey, Shank." He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Bend over and put your hands flat on the ground for Coach Saban here for me, all right?" "Yes, sir." He bends over and puts them hands flat on the ground, them legs totally straight. Coach Saban looks at Pruitt and says, "What the crap have we not offered him?" They offered him on the spot.
That's right. That's right
there. So yeah, it don't take much. They could find them. Well, man, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And I keep up with you and follow you, and us option guys have to stick together.
That's right.
And everybody can't run the spread. You may be running the spread now, but if you are, that's okay. But anyhow, but thanks for coming on. Thanks for what you did for my nephew and your kind words, and appreciate all you do for high school kids and for sports in this state. Okay.
Hey, thank you very much, Coach. Thank you for being just a role model for us coaches as we were coming up, man. I appreciate you. And, I appreciate all that you do, and thank you for having me on.
All right. We'll talk soon, man. Okay.
Yes, sir.